I stood in the middle of the street, engine grease still on my hands, watching the only thing I'd ever built get eaten alive. The first bite came with a crash. Steel jaws of the excavator tore into the roof of my shop like it was nothing more than a cardboard box. Sparks flew. I flinched. My hands shook, but I couldn't move. I didn't understand what I was looking at. My name, Wilson's Garage, painted by hand in 1987, crumpled like it meant nothing. Like I meant nothing. A cold wind whipped past me, carrying the sour scent of diesel and dust. Someone behind the safety tape shouted something, maybe my name. I didn't turn around. Then I saw him, Zach Archer, tan suit, perfect haircut, smug smile that could curdle milk. He leaned against a black SUV, sipping coffee, talking on his phone like this was just another Tuesday. He saw me. I know he saw me. His eyes flicked my way, then slid past like I was a pothole. I walked toward him. Couldn't feel my feet. Couldn't feel anything except the rising pressure in my chest. "You son of a bitch!" I shouted, my voice raw and full of smoke. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" He lowered the phone without looking surprised. "Mr. Wilson, you're trespassing." "Trespassing? That's my shop." "Was. You were served notice weeks ago." I stepped over the orange barrier, past two security guards who moved too slow to stop me. The ground trembled as another chunk of my life collapsed behind me. I didn't look. I stared at him. "You didn't even give me a chance." "You had your chance," he said, calm as ice. "3 offers. You ignored them all. So now we move forward." "This place isn't just mine," I said, voice shaking. "It's this community's. I've fixed every damn car on this street. I've been here 30 years. He shrugged. "And I've been working 10 to make this deal happen. Time to modernize, Jack. You can't stop progress." I lunged. His guards grabbed me, yanked me back. My feet scraped the asphalt. I shouted, fought. My voice cracked on every curse I hurled. People stared. Cameras clicked. But nobody moved to help. Then, a noise, not from me, from the shop. A scream of tearing metal, the kind of sound that guts you. The tow lift, old number 3, the first I ever bought, gave out a final groan and collapsed under the bucket's weight. My stomach turned inside out. All those nights, all those engines, gone. I stopped fighting. They let me go. I stood there, hollow, as the place I loved was turned to rubble in the middle of a Portland afternoon, and that bastard walked away like he'd done me a favor. I didn't cry. Couldn't. But something deep inside me, something old and solid, cracked wide open, and the dust never settled. I spent that night in my truck, parked a block from what used to be my shop. The air still smelled like burnt rubber and broken promises. I didn't sleep. Just stared at the empty corner lot through the windshield, trying to wrap my head around the void. By morning, I wasn't angry anymore, just empty. But even in that emptiness, something began to shift, a flicker. Not rage, purpose. I went home, showered off the stink of demolition and memories, and dug through the file cabinet I hadn't touched in years, contracts, licenses, old blueprints, receipts. I stacked everything related to Wilson's Garage onto the kitchen table. Then I called Ellie. "Dad?" Her voice cracked with sleep. "Sorry, hun," I said. "I need a favor." Ellie was a lawyer now, corporate, sleek, smart as hell. Not the grease monkey's daughter she once was, but mine all the same. She was quiet as I explained what happened. Then she said, "I'll look into it." By noon, I had a legal pad full of names. Former customers, friends, neighbors. People who used to bring me their rusted Buicks and sputtering pickups. People who hugged me after a fix and paid in homemade pie when they couldn't afford cash. I started calling. Most didn't pick up. Some had moved. A few told me they were sorry, wished me well. But then I called Manny. "Jack," he said, voice thick with surprise. I heard what happened, man. That's some bullshit. You still running that tow yard up in Lentz? Yeah. You got room for a few pissed-off mechanics? He laughed. Hell yes. By dusk, I had a small crew. Manny, Ruthie from the parts store, old Tom who could rebuild a carburetor blindfolded, and a couple of the younger guys who used to sweep the floors at my place. They all remembered what the garage meant. They were angry, too. We met in Manny's office that night, hunched over a greasy folding table. I told them everything, showed them photos, legal documents. We weren't lawyers, but we could read between the lines. It's not just a shop, I said. It was our center, our community. They tore it down for a mall no one asked for. Tom slammed his fist on the table. Let's fight. Go public. Manny nodded. Media loves a David and Goliath story. I didn't know if we could win, but I knew one thing. I wasn't letting Archer erase me without a goddamn war. We planned our first protest for the following weekend. Ellie helped us file an injunction. Ruthie printed flyers. We set up a Facebook group, posted photos of the garage's golden days. Stories poured in. People remembered. Someone spray-painted "Save Jacks" on the construction fencing overnight. It wasn't us, but it made the news. That Sunday, 50 people stood in the rain holding signs. Cars honked. A news van showed up. I gave a speech with shaking hands and grease under my nails. Told them the truth. I wasn't just trying to save a building, I was trying to save a legacy. And I wasn't alone anymore. The rain didn't stop for 3 days. On the 4th, the city clerk denied our injunction. Insufficient grounds, the letter said. Just another sheet of legalese stamped with indifference. Ellie called me from her office. I'm sorry, Dad, she said softly. They bought out the zoning board. The council vote was just a show. I hung up without a word. That night, I walked the perimeter of the construction site. Mud clung to my boots like guilt. They'd already started pouring foundation, a fresh scar across the earth where my lift bay used to be. I knelt and touched the concrete, still warm, still wet. My handprint sank into it before I could stop myself. It looked like a ghost reaching up. The next morning, Ruthie told me the parts store had caved. New management didn't want trouble. She was fired. Manny's yard got a surprise inspection. Tom's health went south, chest pains, stress, age. The fight was taking us down one by one. People stopped coming to protests. The Facebook group grew quiet. Likes turned to silence. And me? I unraveled. I stopped shaving, stopped calling Ellie back. I drank cheap beer in the garage behind my house until the mornings bled into evenings and back again. One night, I knocked over a box of old tools and spent an hour trying to fix a busted socket wrench I didn't even need. I yelled at the news, at the sky, at myself. You let them take it, I spat into the mirror one morning, staring at the man I barely recognized. You let it die. Then I stopped talking altogether. The mail piled up. Bills, threats, condolences. A card from a customer in Boise who read about us online. Said he still drove the Buick I fixed back in '98. I threw it in the trash. I didn't leave the house for a week. And when I did, it wasn't for redemption. It was to drive. I took the old Ford and headed west until the city gave way to trees and the road narrowed into memory. Ended up by the Columbia River. Sat on the hood as the wind howled across the water. And I wept. Not for the shop, not for the fight. For everything I couldn't fix. I thought about jumping, for a second, a long one. Then the wind shifted. A seagull shrieked overhead. Somewhere far off, a motor revved. A sound I knew like breath, like blood. And something in me, small, stubborn, half dead, refused to go quiet. I climbed back in the truck, turned the key, and drove home. I didn't come back the same man. The house was still cold, the garage still dark. But something inside me had clicked back into place. Not the old Jack, not entirely, but someone leaner, quieter, sharper. I cleared off the kitchen table and built a new list. Not of people to call, but places to look. Cheap leases, closed warehouses, forgotten corners of Portland where no one was watching. And then I found it. An old firehouse in Cully, brick red and abandoned since 2004. Broken windows, cracked concrete, but bones, strong bones. I stood inside it one morning, dust swirling in the sunlight, and saw not what it was, but what it could be. A new beginning. I called Ellie. She answered on the first ring. "I'm starting over," I said. "Where?" "Cully. An old firehouse." "You serious?" "Dead." A pause. Then, "Okay, I'll help." I called Manny next. "You in?" I asked. He didn't even hesitate. "Hell yes." We pulled it together in silence, not fanfare. No protests, no speeches, just hands, sanding, scraping, welding, wiring. Word spread. Ruthie brought in parts. Tom, pale but stubborn, showed up and taught the kids how to gap spark plugs. Even Ellie came by on weekends, rolled up her sleeves, and learned to change oil. But this time it wasn't just a garage. It was a school. We called it the Lift. Not just for cars, for people. We set up stations for training, created programs, night classes, veterans workshops, community weekends where anyone could bring a clunker and learn how to keep it alive. We didn't charge much, sometimes nothing. Word spread fast. I watched a single mom rebuild her first engine with her kid watching. Saw a teen who'd been in and out of juvie pull apart a transmission and smile like he'd won the lottery. Saw Tom cry when a class clapped for him. The city noticed. Then the local news. Then the grants started coming in. But I didn't care about the spotlight. I cared about the sound, that deep, familiar thrum of work, of life, of stories being rebuilt, one bolt at a time. And then, one evening, a kid I didn't recognize walked in, maybe 17. Nervous. Thin. Eyes like mine used to be. "You Jack?" he asked. "Yeah." "My uncle said you teach folks how to fix things." I looked around, at the engines, the grease, the noise, at the people who had built something real from the ruin of a dream. I nodded. "We do." And we did. The invitation came in a white envelope, thick and self-important. Gilded lettering, City of Portland seal. I almost tossed it. Then I saw the sender. Office of Urban Development. Zach Archer's office. It was a ribbon-cutting ceremony. The mall, Pineview Commons, was finally opening. There was a line at the bottom. We'd be honored to have community leaders in attendance. Honor? I almost laughed. Instead, I showed up, not in a suit, in my coveralls, still dusty from the lift. I stood at the edge of the crowd, pressed between developers in crisp blazers and local officials shaking hands. Cameras flashed, speeches dragged. Archer took the mic last. He talked about growth, about opportunity, about how Pineview Commons was a beacon of modern Portland. Then he looked at me, just for a moment, and I smiled. Afterwards, I waited, behind the press line, out of sight. When he came down the steps, I stepped into his path. "Mr. Wilson," he said, like my name was a misprint. "Zach," I nodded. "Nice mall." He glanced around, cautious. "You here to cause a scene?" "No." I handed him a flyer. Just a folded piece of paper, grease-stained, plain text. The Lift, Auto Skills and Education Center. Open Saturdays. All welcome. He scanned it. "You did this?" "I did." He smirked. "Still chasing ghosts, Jack?" I looked past him at the chrome, the neon, the glass. Then I looked at the flyer in his hand. And I said, "No, I'm building futures." I left him there holding the paper. Didn't wait for a response. Didn't need one.